Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Manifest Wellness Podcast. My name is Lima Pasha. I'm an executive wellness coach. I help you stop stress and beat burnout. The number one health challenge is stress. And as you know, stress causes high blood pressure, heart disease, and other challenges. The unfortunate thing about stress is people have so many different coping mechanisms to deal with stress. And a lot of times the coping mechanisms turn into poor habits that compound the problem. One of those is eating a lot of processed sugar. So today we're going to talk about processed sugar and how to create new habits to break or reduce your addiction to processed sugar. Dr. Green is joining me today, and she is a foot doctor, a foot surgeon, and a plant based nutrition coach specializing in helping people reverse type 2 diabetes, uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. Dr. Green can tell us a little bit more about her journey and how she got started here. So, Dr. Green, tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to become a plant based nutrition coach for people with uncontrolled type 2 diabetes.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely. So, as Lima Pasha mentioned, I am Dr. Janelle Green, podiatrist and Whole Foods plant-based nutrition coach. And I work with people with uncontrolled type 2 diabetes to reverse type 2 diabetes and also to prevent the serious complications that go along with having type 2 diabetes, such as kidney disease, of course, limb loss, blindness. So those are some of the main ones, but there's a host of other complications that if you do adopt a whole foods plant-based diet, if you are type 2 diabetic and adopt that, that can be prevented and reversed. So there is a way out for you. And as a matter of fact, I just have to say this, the CDC has defined that as remission of type 2 diabetes. I know we commonly think of remission in terms of cancer, but the CDC also calls it or also considers type 2 diabetes to be something that can be placed into remission. And a lot of people don't know that. But about my journey, so I always wanted to be a doctor ever since I was 5 years old. I always wanted to help people. Along the way, I learned that I wanted to be a surgeon. And so I actually got some information in the mail, as a matter of fact, about podiatry and about what a podiatrist does. And so I started to shadow a podiatrist. I learned that they worked very closely with people that had type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes was very prevalent, not only within my family, but within communities of color and minority groups, especially here in the United States. Those were populations that I wanted to work with. And so I thought, great, let's combine, my desire to work within this community with the ability to do surgery and help people to help people to save lives, essentially. Because like I shared in a previous podcast, that I lost a family member because she didn't want to have an amputation, and she decided that she would just remain sick. The bacterial infection that was in her foot traveled throughout her entire body. And within my family and a lot of other families, people look at type 2 diabetes as a death sentence. They're going to have, once they get it, they're going to have it and they're going to die. And I wanted people to see, you don't have to die just because you have type 2 diabetes. You don't have to die because you have an infection in your foot or your leg. And you can have a life that is a fully functioning life. You can still socialize. You can still interact with people. You will have loss of a limb, which is not something that people want to live with, but you'll still have your life. You'll still have the ability to interact with people. And one of the greatest predictors of longevity are your social interactions. So Lima, you mentioned just how chronic stress can cause a lot of problems in our lives. A lot of that chronic stress is based in sometimes our inability to have social interactions with people, or because the interactions that we have with people are negative. And so my point is if you're here and you're around in your life, if you're here and you haven't lost your life, then you will be able to maintain those social connections and hopefully decrease stress, and just really, you can continue to thrive in your life, even with limb loss.
That's very inspiring. Dr. Green, can you tell us a little bit about the importance of kicking the sugar habit, especially for people with type 2 diabetes, and also share your story and how you reduce or cut out your sugar?
I can. Before we go, so I'll start with telling you how I even became plant-based. This has been about a 20-year journey. And the original goal that I started off with wasn't to be plant-based. I always had an interest in maintaining my health and having wellness in my life and balance. So I was always physically active. I always tried to drink water. But I still had, my father loved to make ribs, buffalo wings, cakes, pies, orange juice, you name it. So I still consumed all those things. I loved potato chips. So I still consumed those things, but I still had in my mind to be healthy and to have some type of what I thought at the time was good nutrition. And so because I had my ear leaning towards that, any other information that I gathered along the way was helpful. A couple things really simple that was pivotal for me in becoming, I'll say, first vegetarian is when I was in college, and the cafeteria food, the meat there was just not appealing to me. And because of that, it encouraged me to abstain from having burgers and turkeys and different types of meat, because I just couldn't stand what I was getting in college. I love my university, but the food there just kind of turned me off and forced me to be vegetarian. But then I began to take different classes. I took anatomy classes and learn about the muscle. This is the real science of it all. This is my truth. I learned about the muscle and what muscle was in the human body and the animal body, and there's not much difference. And so I began to question, why am I eating this? Why am I consuming this? And what's the real nutritional value? And then I would go through periods in my life where I would be vegetarian, then I would come home or be around people, and then I would eat meat. There was one time where I went on a 21-day fast, and just from meat. So I didn't have any meat. I still consumed dairy, but I loved hamburgers. That was like one of my favorite things. And I didn't have hamburgers, chicken, turkey. But I did consume a little fish during that time. And I did it for 21 days, and I was flying across country, I think on the day that I ended the fast. And so I was in the airport, and this airport happened to have my favorite steak restaurant and burger place. So I said I was going to reward myself with a glass of red wine and a really nice, good quality hamburger. And I enjoyed it. It was tasty. But once I got on the plane, I was very, very sick. And it was about a 5-hour flight. And let's just say I'm happy that I made it through that flight. And I am thankful the person that I was sitting next to had grace, because I was going back and forth to the bathroom. But then, because I always question things, I said to myself, why am I cut this out. And then as soon as I add this to my diet, why am I experiencing this? Is there some poison in here? That was just the basic thing. And I didn't attribute it to food poisoning, but what it caused me to do is investigate what was in the meat that I was eating. In addition to that, once I learned that, and so I cut back on meat. And then there were phases that I went through where I completely cut out any meat. And I noticed that my body changed. I didn't have painful periods anymore. And that was extremely motivating for me as somebody who grew up taking Midol and Aleve and, all of that whenever I was on my period. And so I learned about all the hormones and different things that were in meat, and learned about inflammation and the acidity. And so it was a process for me. And like I said, this was a 20-year process. And so fast forward into, let me say this. There's one other story, I can save it for later, about when I did my first water only fast. We can save that for later, but that was a contributing factor into why, I went plant-based. But let's say fast forward, almost 20 years from the college days, from my experience flying, from me questioning, what's in my food, to going into private practice. And I went into private practice in an area in San Francisco where the culture was completely different. My patients there were in their 70s and their 80s, and they were living longer. They were teaching fitness classes and hiking 10 miles and just doing amazing things with their lives and playing tennis. And, I'm like, these people are in their 70s and their 80s and they're thriving. And I began, of course, to question things. It's good to have an inquisitive mind. What is different about this community as compared to the communities that I worked with previously, where when I was in Los Angeles working at a county hospital, and I had 30 and 40-year-olds on dialysis, losing toes, going blind. I'm like, what's going on? And so I talked to my patients. A lot of them had gardens, and they were not plant-based or vegan per se, but the majority of their diet was fruit and vegetables. They ate a lot of plants they ate from their garden. And that was a huge factor, in addition to maintaining, physical activity. And so while in a lot of communities, I do understand the stressors are different, what I realized though, is you can control what you put into your mouth. And what you put into your mouth makes a huge impact on how you are able to function on a day-to-day, and how you're able to complete different tasks, and how you're able to spend time with loved ones. And so I learned that this community that I was serving in San Francisco really invested in physical activity. They invested their money in making sure that they had plants to eat, fruit to eat. And that was a turning point for me, because when I changed the location of my practice, I really wanted the community, the new community that I worked with, to understand that. And that encouraged me to take classes. So I took classes in plant-based nutrition, with people who were interested in going plant-based. And let me say this, I wasn't even interested in going plant-based when I took the classes, because I had them, I'm a doctor, I'm a physician. I know a lot. I've taken anatomy classes. I've taken all these classes. But the truth is, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I learned so much about nutrition and food and how it interacts with on a cellular level in our bodies. And so I had my personal experience, and then I had the science to back it up. And then I had taken many classes with people who were on either weight loss journeys or trying to, decrease hypertension or diabetes, and they were interested in going plant-based. And so being in that community was very influential. And in addition to that, my one of the requirements in being in the class is to do a detox. So the detox meant no meat, eggs, and dairy. And at the time when I started the class, I still had my Friday pepperoni pizzas. That was like the thing for me. But also no salt, oil, and sugar. And so doing that detox gave me a chance to see what my body was like off of the meat, eggs, dairy, salt, oil, and sugar, which is not something I had ever experienced in my entire life. So my body hadn't even had the opportunity to experience the goodness that was available with that lifestyle. And once I did, it was a no-brainer for me.
What were some of the things that you experienced as a result of that detox? Was there a transitional phase when it was challenging, or was it pretty easy to go on that detox?
Yeah. Well, let me start off by telling you about the first detox that I did. And the first, the first two. So I'll tell you that one I did when it was really popular. I don't know how popular it is now, but the lemon juice cleanse. So I did that and for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, and for those of you that don't know, it's cayenne pepper, lemon juice, and water. And so that's all I had for 10 days. At the very end of the 10 days, I decided to break my fast with getting some orange juice from Whole Foods. When I broke that fast, my ears, I felt congested just from having the orange juice. And so I questioned, what's going on? I didn't quite understand it. And this was over 10 years ago. But I said, there's something not right about this orange juice. And I'm not sure. I got it from Whole Foods, which is great. But, there's something not right. It's not making me feel like I thought orange juice would because it's healthy, right? Then another time I did a fast, I did it because I had been getting strep throat. I got it probably 3 times within a 4-month period. And I talked to one of the doctors that I was working with in LA, and he suggested doing a detox. And at the time, I really wasn't in a place where I felt like I needed to invest in a detox for my health. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go, I'm just going to go and do this on my own. And so I did it was my very first 3-day water only fast. And that was the way that I detoxed myself. I did add a little lemon, but I did it for 3 days. And at the very 3rd day, I got an excruciating pain in my throat where I was having strep throat. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on, but since I did that, I haven't had strep throat, not since I did that fast. When I removed completely sugar from my diet as a part of the course, salt, oil, and sugar, my mental clarity went through the roof. And by the time I had gotten to that place, I had already cut out a lot of things from my diet. So it wasn't that challenging for me. I reaped a lot of the benefits. I did have a little breakout of my skin. But other than that, I personally did not experience a lot of some of the common things that can go along with someone who is strictly consuming a standard American diet. So some of those things, like when you go from a standard American diet to a strict, no meat, no eggs, no dairy, no salt, no oil, no sugar, you might get lethargic initially. You might break out. You might have skin rashes because the mucus. You might get congested. Some people might feel like they have a cold because the mucus and all of that is draining from your body. So you will experience some of those things. And I did, but only on a smaller level. The biggest thing for me was the benefit that I received from removing processed sugar from my diet in terms of the mental clarity and the ability to focus that I gained, the ability not to have feelings of highs and lows and feelings of waking up in the morning kind of in a brain fog and feeling like, I don't know why, but I just don't feel good today. When I cut sugar out my diet, I didn't have mornings like that anymore. And so as someone who is a professional, who is a mother and a wife and a caregiver, that's very important to be able to move through your day without all the cloudiness.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about stress and how people are using sugar as a coping mechanism to deal with stress. Mm-hmm. When you talk about removing sugar from the diet, sometimes people get triggered because they know about the stress that they're under, and they may have tried to get rid of sugar before, and it causes them so much anxiety. So what do you recommend for that experience, or what would you suggest?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
What would you suggest to a patient or a client?
Yeah, that's trying to. You're exactly right. Anxiety. I think, as you talked about, it's important for people to understand that sugar is a drug. It overstimulates your dopamine centers. It is a drug in the same that heroin and cocaine are drugs. It is isolated and it is concentrated. So I believe, what is it? Cocaine comes from the cocoa plant, right? The cocoa plant itself is not the drug. Heroin comes from opium, or those things aren't it's the isolated and concentrated aspect that makes the sugar a drug. And so it's important to understand that. So when you do remove it, you will have those detox symptoms. You will have anxiety. It makes sense that people are triggered. I had a friend tell me one time that it didn't make sense for me to leave my peanut butter. I had this peanut butter that I had brought. I was visiting her, and so I was eating my peanut butter at her house, and I knew I couldn't take it on the plane. And she said, well, you don't really need to leave it here. You might as well throw it away, because my kids aren't going to eat it because there's no sugar in it. So we are, really addicted to sugar. We make decisions about what we're going to eat based on whether or not there's sugar in there. And we've kind of defined that as a way for, things to taste good. Some people in their minds, things won't taste good if they don't have the sugar in them. But sugar is absolutely addictive. It will cause you to have highs and lows and different mood swings and anxiety. And so the only true way to beat an addiction is to abstain from it, right? You don't tell someone who has been, a street drug user to do it in moderation in terms of their addiction. If they're using heroin, the idea is to abstain from it. You can try to find something to replace it. And so what I encourage my patients to do when they're trying to wean themselves off of processed sugar is to start with dried fruits. Dried fruits like dates are super, super sweet. Dried papaya, those things they are high in sugar, but they also have the fiber content. When you think about sugar in our society, when we talk about sugar or processed and refined sugar, we're talking about the fructose that's taken out of the fruits, like the sugar cane and the different things. When that sugar is within the whole food, there's a whole lot of fiber. So, for example, sugar cane has a whole lot of, that cane stick is pretty much all fiber. So the amount of fiber that's in foods will help to quell the impact of sugar. So I tell my patients, start with dried fruit first, and then wean yourself off of those. Instead of having your candy bar or your Twix, start with dried fruit. If you are a soda drinker, half water, half soda. So I do try it. There are steps to wean you off. Or if you're having 3 sodas a day, cut it down to 1, and each time have 1. Instead of having the other 2 sodas, have a bottle of water. Then after you transition down to dried fruit, fresh fruit, your taste buds will change. So fresh fruit will eventually start to become sweeter. So some people need that transition and require that transition. But the best thing is to abstain from it. And in order to abstain from it, you have to understand when you're eating it and know when you're eating it. It's important to remove sugar from your toothpaste. Sugar is a preservative. So if you're getting that sweet little sugar taste when you're brushing your teeth, it's going to be harder to deal with that throughout your day. So removing it from your toothpaste. Not drinking any juice. Juice is devoid of fiber. That's going to increase your blood sugar. You need to get rid of fruit juice from your diet, store-bought fruit juices. In addition to that, those are like really, really, really big things. So removing sugar from your toothpaste, removing it, no fruit juice, no sodas. When you buy packaged items, understanding what sugar is in the food that you're eating. So looking on the label. Sometimes sugar will be easy to identify because you'll see it'll say sugar, or it might say high fructose corn syrup. That's one of the ones that people might easily identify with. But there are over 75, maybe 100 different names of sugar. Barley malt is a type of sugar. There are different alcohol sugars. And so understanding that the food that you buy that you may not even think has sugar in it might have sugar. So potato chips, another big thing that has sugar in it that people don't really know is like the General's orange chicken, especially if it's processed, that has a high sugar content as well. Your ketchups, different garlic seasoning salt, I've seen that with sugar in it. So in order to successfully get rid of sugar from your body, it needs to be removed in all areas. It's not just cakes, candies, and pies, those typical things, but there's sugar in processed things. And they put sugar in them because they know it will keep us coming back for more. It's easier to sell something if you make it a little sweeter, right? So check and look at your labels and identify, is there sugar in this packaged food product? And the best way to eliminate sugar from your diet is to shop the perimeter of the grocery store and not buy packaged foods, and make your own foods so that you know what's going into it, and it allows you to be less bothered with with identifying and reading labels.
Yes. One of the things that you shared last time that was powerful is the statistic that it takes about 11 days to change your taste buds. And I think that's powerful for people to understand, because even though we have certain habits, they don't have to last forever. If you can wait it out 11 days or more, eliminating these processed and sugary foods, the outcome will be so rewarding to you in your future, and you will be able to just reap those benefits of the new habits, especially coming into the new year. So a few things we shared about, I'll share this. One of the ways that helped me to reduce my sugar intake, I used to eat lots of cookies years ago. I no longer do that because one of the reasons was I knew it wasn't beneficial to me. But once I stopped, I felt so much better. I had more energy. I started to lose weight. One of the ways that helped me to do that was lemon water with ginger. And I still drink a lot of lemon water and ginger to this day, either warm or room temperature. And then I also drink tea throughout the day. So it's my understanding that the lemon or lime kind of cleanses your digestive tract. It helps you alkaline your system. And then it also it feels like I have more energy, and I'm less likely to reach for something that's not healthy when I do the lemon water and ginger. It could also be because, it satiates me. I'm not thirsty. So sometimes people are eating when they're actually indeed thirsty. And another reason why we eat, in addition to the stress that we already talked about, is because we're having digestion issues. Like if you have all that stuff compounded inside of your intestines, your stomach is like sending you all these signals. And sometimes you think, oh, I need to eat more of it, but that's not really what you need to do. Do you have any suggestions related to that? I know you drink lemon water too, or other things that people can do to kind of beat those cravings within the 11 days where their taste buds are kind of transitioning?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Drinking water, like you said, lemon water is definitely going to be key. And mindfulness, this is the mindfulness, and really sitting and meditating is going to be very helpful for you while you're trying to wait it out. And it's 11, so about 14 days. But after that, your taste buds do change, and it's definitely well worth it. So I think, what you mentioned was great. Like I said, eliminating all of the sugar, all the processed and refined sugar, drinking water are going to be key, but the mindfulness will really help you to be successful.
Yes, that's powerful. Mindfulness, meditation, visualization, visualizing yourself at the end of the journey or further along in your journey where you have achieved your goal. Mm-hmm. And also, we talked about how this helps you.
Before you go, I did want to say, one of the things that we did talk about is that the sugar, getting down to the reason why you're eating the sugar, because sugar, my mentor, whom I love, will say is the answer. It's not the problem. So, a lot of times people will go throughout their day, and then they find that when they're having a downtime or at the end of their day, that's when they want to have, their glass of wine because of their sugar content in that, or they want to have their cakes and their pies, or, their fruit, whatever it is, they might drink a lot of soda, but it's the sugar. So the sugar is providing you with a solution to possibly some of the problems that you might have in other areas of your life. So it's the answer. It's providing you with, I want to make sure I say that right, but consumption of sugar or consuming something that, a lot of people know the sugar is bad for them. They know the consequences of it, but they consume it because it's providing them with a way to stay calm amidst of all of the other problems or issues that might be going on in their lives. And so getting to the bottom of why you might be having problems in other areas, maybe it might be at work or in a personal relationship, is going to help you. So while you're meditating and visualizing, seeking a coach, seeking a therapist, journaling to try to figure out and work through these issues that are causing you to eat things that are not good for you.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense too. Sugar can be like a numbing mechanism, right? People don't want to feel or experience the present moment.
Right.
And they're pushing that down with eating more sugar. So there's so many reasons why people continue to eat sugar, even though they know it's not good for them. So this year, at this time, we want people to know about the reasons why they need to stop sugar. And those reasons are even more compelling than why they should continue the sugar. It's so important for people to get in touch with their feelings, be able to focus on the present moment instead of numbing that moment, so that they can become vital and get past the challenges that they're experiencing. If we keep numbing the problem, then we can't overcome the problem. Mm-hmm. So definitely meditation, visualization, journaling, gratitude for the good things that you have in your life, not using sugar as a false sense of reward that ends up turning into a punishment long term. Dr. Green, can you tell us some stories about patients who have gone on this journey and removed sugar from their diets or been able to have success in reversing or putting their type 2 diabetes into remission?
Yes. So some patients, a lot of the patients, it's an ongoing journey. It is an ongoing journey for a lot of patients. But when I've seen patients that have removed sodas, so sodas is a big thing. A lot of them, the biggest thing that works for them is their symptoms of neuropathy. Their painful neuropathy goes away when they are able to remove sodas and they cut down on the cakes and pies and candies. And that's huge for me in my practice because people come to me because of the pain in their feet. That's like the first sensation. And so many people are concerned about losing their feet. You know, they don't think about the blindness. They don't think about, you know, dialysis or the impotence or the brain fog, you know, all those things that go along with having type 2 diabetes. They're concerned about losing their feet. And so when I can convince them, remove the sodas from your diet, remove the sugar from your diet, and they have less pain, it makes them less afraid that they're at risk at losing their feet. I had a patient just come in the other day. He's like, Dr. Green, you know, it worked. He's like, I can't believe it. So he's like, I'm not drinking soda anymore. You know, I didn't have any cakes and pies. And he still is on the journey, on the process, and he hasn't reversed his type 2 diabetes yet. But in terms of his symptoms of painful neuropathy, it's so rewarding. So
that's great to hear. You know,
yeah.
there is hope, and Dr. Green is really working with people and teaching them how to reverse their uncontrolled type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us like the journey of a person who may have uncontrolled type 2 diabetes? How does it get to that point? Because there might be someone who, you know, they've just been diagnosed as having diabetes and they don't know what the future could hold for them. If they keep eating cookies, cakes, and pies and drinking soda every day, what could the next 5 or 10 years look like for someone like that?
So for someone with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, it's important to understand that even though they're just now getting this diagnosis, their body has been going through periods of what we call insulin resistance for years, meaning that the insulin in their body has gone through phases where it just doesn't want to respond to the sugar that's accumulating in your blood. So that's the first thing, is understanding that just because you have this diagnosis and you're early in the process, your body has been battling this for many years. After you have had type 2 diabetes, you know, for a while, many people start with taking oral medication, and they might take something called metformin. Their doctor might suggest diet changes and different things like that. But if they continue, you know, I have patients, unfortunately, that don't check their blood sugars. They don't want to stick their fingers. And so their diabetes continues to get out of control. And not one person is exactly the same, and not one person is going to get, you know, it's not a linear process. Somebody with type 2 diabetes might start off with, you know, they have burning and tingling, pins and needle sensation in their feet. Somebody might have like itchiness or just problems with their vision. So all these things, it's not a linear process, and everybody is different. But you can have burning, tingling in terms of the process to getting your limb loss. You have burning, tingling, pins and needle sensations in your feet. Your nerves can they make you feel like maybe somebody might be stabbing you in your feet. They feel hot, cold. So all these sensations can happen in your feet. They come and go, and eventually you will get to a point where you don't have any sensation in your feet. And when that happens, you don't know if your shoe is rubbing on a certain area too much. You don't know if you've stepped on something hot, or if, for example, you decided you're going to, you know, have a nice evening. You're going to soak your feet in some hot water and Epsom salt. You won't feel if that water is too hot. You can burn your feet. When I was in Southern California, I had a lot of my patients would come in with burns on the bottom of their feet because the concrete was hot and they didn't feel it, and it burned the skin off of their feet to the bone. When you get when you're at the place where you don't have any sensation in your feet, you're more likely to get infections because, you know, you don't feel an open wound or you don't feel a bad ulceration. A lot of times people don't even look at their feet, especially if there's someone who is with type 2 diabetes and they're obese, because they can't get down and look at the bottom of their feet in between their toes. So a lot of times people may not even know it, but you get to a point where you have all these crazy sensations, then you have no sensation, and then you have no sensation and an ulceration, which then leads to a possible infection. When you have type 2 diabetes, your blood vessels are also compromised. So your blood is not getting to where it needs to be. Those small little blood vessels below your knee, it's hard for them to get blood where they need to be because they become calcified and hardened. And so you have a combination of, you have an area where you have a wound, you have an infection, your blood flow is poor, and then eventually you have so much what we call like devitalized, or so much infected tissue, your bone can become infected. And at that point, you are a candidate for some degree of amputation. And that can start, you know, it can just be one toe and it can progress all the way up into the thigh. You know, there are, you know, that can happen as well. So that's what happens in the feet. But all along while that's happening, you also have calcification of blood vessels all over your body. Yeah, all over your body, and you know, your eyes, your kidneys don't work as well. So it really is a whole body disease. The sugar is an issue, but research is shown, I don't know, maybe in the past 40 years, I'm not exactly sure of that statistic, or the date, but diabetes is less of a sugar disease and more of a fat disease, meaning they're calling it an intramyocellular lipid disease. Because what's happening is when your blood sugar is so high, your insulin is, the goal of the insulin is try to get that blood sugar into our muscle and our liver cells, because we need sugar. When I say sugar, I mean glucose. We need that in order to function. We need that. It's a process called ATP. We need that energy in order to move my arms, to think. We need that. And so the goal of the insulin is to get that sugar into the cells. But if you have too much fat blocking the sugar from getting from the insulin, from taking the sugar into the cells, then that is a contributing factor to type 2 diabetes. And that's why all of my patients, in addition to removing sugar, removing oils from their diet is imperative. And that's why removing meat is imperative. It's very high in saturated fat. And so the term is intramyocellular lipid disease. So in between, you know, the muscle cells, right, you can't absorb the sugar, the glucose that you need to for energy, and fat is accumulated in that area. And one of the things that increases the amount of fat in that area, especially around the abdomen, is high fructose corn syrup. So that contributes to you having a fatty liver, contributes to you having type 2 diabetes. So it's the sugar on one end, but it's also the fats and the oils that need to be removed from your diet.
Yes, that's powerful. So as part of your cleanse and as part of your new lifestyle, getting rid of the sugar and the saturated fat, it's a dual combination.
Absolutely.
I want to go back and look at the video that we did previously. We talked about the importance of fiber. So to give you some hope, people who are listening, you're not just cutting out, you're not just depriving yourself, but you are going to increase your fiber intake. So what does that mean in the realm of getting more fruits and vegetables? How do people get the healthy glucose that they need while eliminating the processed sugar that they don't need?
Yeah. So I like to keep it simple sometimes. I mean, I'm like, if it grows out of the ground and grows out of the ground and comes off of a tree, you can be safe with that. It's what we do to it. So you want to try to consume things that are minimally processed. Like I said, shopping in the perimeter. But one of the things that people that we've trained ourselves is that there's no life if you're not consuming animal products, if you're not consuming meat, or that people are afraid of what would happen if you remove the chicken, the fish, the chicken, fish, turkey, and then red meat, cow's meat, pork. Those our meat food groups are super limited, whether they're like 5 or 6, and then we bake it, we fry it, we broil it, but there's not a lot there's not very much variety in our meat food groups. And so when you step outside of that thinking, you realize that there are a ton of different fruits and vegetables that are available to you that like to be seasoned, because I'm definitely, a proponent of seasoning your food and seasoning it with spices and herbs, not just salt and pepper. But, let's move beyond our garlic, salt, and pepper. There's turmeric and cardamom and cumin and just thyme and oregano. There's a bunch of different things. And all these things can make your food taste good and flavorful. And so when switching to a whole foods plant-based diet and you remove animal products, there are a ton of food. There are like 300 different varieties of fruits and vegetables, and you can bake them. Mushrooms are really big as well, and lentils, beans are super, super big. You can get your glucose from there's glucose in pretty much everything in greens. When I went on the very first time I removed sugar completely from my diet, and I mean removed it from my toothpaste, everything, I could taste the sweetness in a collard green, because my taste buds had changed. So definitely making sure that you have try something new, because it's going to require a huge lifestyle change. It's going to require a different mindset for you. But don't limit yourself. If you find something that, you got a recipe and you tried to cook it and you didn't like it, don't stop there, because that didn't stop anybody when they had a piece of, their cousin's chicken and it didn't taste good. That didn't stop you from going to Popeyes and trying their chicken. So continue to try different things. If there's a recipe that you don't like, try a different one. But you have to stay in the game. Give yourself an opportunity to get past the first 2 weeks or the 30 days. And if you're looking to reverse your type 2 diabetes, it takes about 3 months, I find with my patients. And I'm not going to say you will have, but if you have a relapse, don't beat yourself up about it. Just start over. You've been given the opportunity to have a new day.
That's amazing. And this is such a relevant topic to so many people. I posted the other day on LinkedIn, and we talked about 11% of the population, I guess, that's been surveyed has type 2 diabetes. And that's a lot of people. And 36% of people have pre-diabetes. So even if you don't yet have diabetes and you have pre-diabetes, you really want to take this seriously. Dr. Green is interested, or she does, go into the workplace and help people to increase productivity by cutting out their sugar. So I know it's a big deal in the workplace, because with 36% of the population having pre-diabetes, lots of people are impacted by insulin resistance and other challenges. So yes.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It does, affect your productivity. There are so many people that have to take off work go on disability because of foot problems related to type 2 diabetes, or lethargy, or having to go to dialysis. So that really is at the extreme level. On a day-to-day basis, for those people that are pre-diabetic, and then there's so many people that don't even type 2 diabetic and don't even know it because they don't go to the doctor. But you know, we talked about this before, like might be, you compare two people and one of them, you know, for breakfast they might be intermittent fasting, let's say, and they had their lemon water for breakfast. And for lunch, they decided they're going to break their fast at lunch. They have a salad and they have a homemade dressing. So they know they didn't put any sugar in that homemade dressing. And they have, I don't know, turmeric and lemon and I don't know, maybe avocado. They might have a piece of whole fruit. You know, this is what they have had for lunch. And then they have their water. And then they come back for the afternoon and they're ready to go. They're productive. And you compare that with someone maybe who got up in the morning and they had their packaged oatmeal for breakfast that has a whole lot of sugar content. They had their orange juice. Then they go to work at lunchtime. They're like, oh, I'm feeling tired, but I'm going to eat healthy. And I hate to say it, they have their salad with their store-bought salad dressing that has 30 grams of sugar per serving. They say, oh, I'm going to have a bag of potato chips, a salad and a bag of potato chips. That potato chips might also have sugar in it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling tired. And they don't know why. They just attribute it to that being, the middle of the day slump. And so they have a Coke or a Pepsi. There's more sugar. And so you compare that person in the afternoon with the person who had the homemade salad with their salad dressing that they know that's what's in it, that had the whole fruit, that had the water. Their ability to focus and concentrate is going to be completely different. And that, that impacts work. It impacts your ability to be successful, to focus, to have happiness within the workplace. So, in a lot of these people, or the person that I mentioned who's trying to be healthy, might even be diabetic and not even know, so we're all at risk. A lot of us are at risk for type 2 diabetes, but it's just what we eat and what that controls that.
Yes. So Dr. Green, can you tell people a little bit about your practice and how people can reach you?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Janelle Green, podiatrist, whole foods, plant-based nutrition coach. You can reach me at dr.janellegreen@gmail.com. My website is www.drjanellegreen, like the color, .com. And I'm on Instagram as well. So I work with people that are interested in reversing type 2 diabetes and preventing limb loss that's related to type 2 diabetes.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Hope that you have been inspired. Wanted to encourage you to live a life of purpose with gratitude, visualization, and community. Kicking off a renew, rebuild, and reclaim 30-day detox, which is a part of a lifestyle journey. So we're not just going to do the 30 days and then go back into eating poorly. This is a part of kicking off the new year with improved habits and vitalization. It's a part of rebuilding and renewing your cells, creating fresh, flowing blood throughout your body, changing those taste buds from craving junk food to being able to enjoy the taste of fruit. And as part of the challenge, which includes intermittent fasting, eating more healthy foods, eating more fruits and vegetables, also includes meditation and visualization throughout the 30-day period. So I'll share with you more on this channel about how you can participate in this free challenge with me. My goal is to lose about 10 pounds. And I've done this before. I've lost 40 pounds and kind of continued, but I want to be even more intentional during this 30-day period. So I'll share with you my journey as I go into it to lose 10 pounds. And also definitely contact me if you're interested in learning how to practice mindfulness. I teach mindfulness in the workplace as well as one-on-one. I coach executives on how to beat stress and offer workshops. So I'm so happy and inspired to work with you. One of the things that wanted to let you know is I'm the coach to call when you want to stop stress and beat burnout. So see you next time.